Three, two, one. All right, so this is the attack basic rule of three for support and breakdown work in sevens rugby. What we're covering here will be pretty straightforward. Our outcomes, we want to understand the rules, we want to understand the role of the rule of three within the team, understand your role in the common ruck situations, and understand how the rule of three works in the trams. So, rule of three defined and explained. The definition of rule of three is your role during the process of supporting, setting a good and fast ruck during phase play. In sevens, a group of three is usually just a subunit inside of the whole team. This is just an attack portion of that same rule of just how we can get three players to work effectively together at the breakdown. So what are the roles and the rules for the rule of three? So rule one is the ball carrier. The ball carrier should always be evasive at the point of contact and win the ground battle to set a good ruck. Usually with teams is if they're getting turned over at the breakdown, it's not necessarily great work by the defense. It's poor work by the attack, especially the ball carrier to be evasive at the point of contact and win the ground battle. Number two, the rucker. We want to communicate with number one what we want. So if we need him to stay up a little bit longer so we can get there, without going down and giving the defense a chance to contest, we got to communicate that. If we need him to go down fast, we got to communicate that. You just got to communicate what you need from the ball carrier to be as successful as possible. Secondly, he or she needs to secure, not clear the ruck. Biggest thing in sevens is we don't have the resources to be clearing beyond the ruck, so we always want to make sure that we're setting a ruck and being able to win and secure that breakdown. So it's a good, clean ball for the third. Rule number three is the scrum half. He has to be quick and to move the ball quick. One thing that you'll hear us police a lot is hand braking. A lot of the times what happens is number three will come in when he's getting ready to be the scrum half, or she's getting ready to be the scrum half, will come in and use his hands and touch the number two. That's just slowing down the process. So that's something to be mindful of as we get into it and we start to learn a little bit more, is we want to avoid hand braking. So rule of three as it relates to the whole team. This is what it looks like. It's an easy little Venn diagram-esque graphic to show you how that rule of three supports. Like I said in the intro, everybody's working in a subgroup of three inside the whole unit of the team. This is just a simple demonstration of how it would look. You're always in a group of three. Biggest thing is a simple policy is if you touch the ball in the last three passes, you are in the rule of three. This is especially important in the middle of the field, so you understand what your role is in the support. So supporting the ruck in the narrow trams. Ideally, we want to set most of our phases in the trams in seven. If you set it in the trams, you're able to play wide. There's more space, all of that. It's a job of number one to create good forward ball and win the ground battle. Number two needs to communicate timing. And number one, timing to number one so the ruck can be secured with little time for defensive contest. And number three needs to be there quick so the ball can be moved before the defense sets its feet. Right here in the simple diagram, we can show you the narrow tram is the sideline to the 5 meter. Okay, now A1 has won the contact. It's going down. A2 is coming in to be the rucker, and A3 is coming in to be the scrum half. It's as easy as that. Again, if you looked at that diagram on the previous slide, you'll see that this is how it would look. This is that same little group of three at either edge of the field. So how do we support the ruck in the wide trams? The wide trams is the 5 meters to the 15 meters. This can be a common situation that needs to be addressed in the game of sevens when a player thinks that he might be able to beat the second defender in and get stuck in this situation. So if we need to set the ruck, what we want to make sure that we're doing is we're having our outside player come in to be 2, and our third most in player, A3, coming in to be the scrum half. By bringing A2 in, we might be able to drag the defender that was marked on him in towards the breakdown and open up that weak side for A3 to have a pop and go around the blind side. This is a common problem that happens in sevens. Poor disciplined teams often have this ruck set And then A3 will become A2, and then the player outside or inside of A3 will become the third player in there in the rule of three, and then A2 in this diagram gets stuck sitting out there and being useless attack. Again, the biggest thing in sevens is making sure that we're getting all of our resources involved in every attacking phase. We can't waste a player just standing out in the trams hoping for something to happen. We got to get everybody involved. And this is a great way to do it in this situation. So, rule of three review. How would you, Ruck, be sourced in this situation? You can take a second, look at it. I've spelled out the situation as for you. I'll click it in a second and I'll show you the answer. If you have to, pause it, write it down on a piece of paper and draw it out. It'll be extremely helpful for you and reinforce some good lessons. So with that being said, I'll give you a second. Great. So reviewing what we've already talked about, this is how we would source this ruck. We would bring the second player in, would be rule of two. Third player in would be rule of three. They would come in, set that ruck, get a fastball out to our link here. Good. Second review. How would we source this ruck in the situation? Again, we're attacking the wide tram. Sorry, we are attacking the wide tram here, and the attack is coming from left. How would we source this ruck? Think about it. Pause it. If you have to draw it out again. Reinforce good habits. All right. So this is how we'd source it. Just like we talked about, we'd bring the outside most player in to be two, and the player inside the ball carrier in to be three. Simple as that. Good. So this is a situation we actually didn't talk about, and I'm going to let you guys try to figure it out. So rule of three in review, how would we source this ruck? We're attacking the middle of the field. As you can see, we are in the middle of the field in the graphic. The attack is coming from the left. How would we source it? Great. Here it is. So same thing, since we've set the ruck in the middle of the field, realistically, we're going to have resources split. So you should have a couple more players out wide to the left of this diagram. Okay. And we should have a couple more out wide to the right of this diagram. All we do, same thing, rule of three, going back to that support map that we saw on one of the earlier slides. You know that these three players, and following that simple rule of the last three players to pass the ball, if the attack is coming from the right to the left, you know that two players with the arrows were the last two players to touch the ball before the ball carrier carried it in. Those two reasons should be why they end up sourcing the ruck. So again, to review, the policy is if, you touch the ball in the last three passes, you're part of the ruck. And two, according to our source map, that Venn diagram tells us that those three are working together. So that's it. So rule of three of review, we are always inside of a group of three. We saw that diagram. We know that at the ruck time, the rule of three is what we're trying to do here. One being the ball carrier, two being the rucker, and three being the scrum half. This is helping remind players of their support responsibilities. This short little video should be able to help you with that. You can always watch it. It's available all the time. And reinforce good habits. Biggest thing you heard me, maybe draw it out or get a notebook that you're focused solely on writing down the things that you learned. This is a good way, or this is a good tool to use for your first notebook entry. And then also narrow tram and wide tram responsibility and how they are different. Those are the three things we learned. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Let's reinforce some good habits at training. Thank you.